3.5 years ago, I weighed over 650 pounds, and now I've lost almost 370 using a GLP-1 medication, walking, and weightlifting. And I'd like to introduce myself. In addition, I want to teach you some of the things that I learned along the way, mistakes I made, and lessons that have taught me how to successfully lose weight and keep it off over the course of time. In the process, I've started sharing my story on social media, appearing on a number of podcasts and in the news media. And I'm doing that not because this is something I ever intended on talking about, but it's something that I find people really need to hear, especially those who are struggling with their weight like I did for many years. But I want to tell you my story sort of at the beginning. I'm 47 years old now, and I have been morbidly obese since I was 9 years old. And when I started gaining weight was actually over Christmas break. I went to hang out with my grandparents, and they had a refrigerator in the garage. It was full of soda, and I had never really had soda before, at least not very often. And they said, anytime you want something to drink, go grab it. And I ended up drinking a ton of soda and really got an addiction to it over the course of a couple of weeks and started gaining weight at that point. And then after that, I'd stopped spending my money on baseball cards and started spending my money on things like candy bars and really sugary soda drinks. And over the course of time, I continued to gain and gain throughout high school, into college, and beyond. I worked at Amazon for almost 20 years. I also worked for Walmart e-commerce, and I worked in politics. But once I turned 21, I was making a little bit of income and started going out with friends and gained a lot. I've been over 500 pounds since I was about 20 or 21 years old, and was over 600 pounds starting in probably 2016. Over the course of years, I moved a lot for work, and I kept getting bigger and bigger, and I'd moved to a new city. And when I'd moved to this new city, I wouldn't really know anyone. I would find I was lonely and I was bored, and I would eat because of that. And I tried to lose weight over the course of time, and I did many times. I lost weight. The time I probably most successfully lost weight was in 2015, 2016. I started this diet, this medical weight loss program called OptiFast, which is a meal replacement where you drink a couple of shakes or bars throughout the day. You supplement with some kind of frozen meals, make some vegetables, and then you weigh in every week. You go to this session each week where you weigh in front of people, and you go to a little nutrition class. And I lost well over 100 pounds over the course of 3 or 4 months. And I did it, even though it was difficult, even though I had this food noise in my head constantly, the ego hit of going to this thing and not losing weight was a little bit too much for me. So I lost a lot of weight, and then I moved for work, and I gained all of it back, plus more, in just a few months. And I realized now looking back that loss was muscle. I lost a bunch of muscle and regained fat. And I found after that, starting in 2016, 2017, the ability for me to take weight off was almost impossible. And the ability to gain weight was really, really easy. I moved to England in 2018 for work. I was over there for a few years, was able to actually lose a little bit of weight, just a few pounds during that point. I'd stopped gaining, and I sort of blame the fact I did not like the food over in England. And so that was really helpful. But then I moved back to the US right before COVID. And working for Amazon at the time when COVID started, as you can imagine, we got really busy. I managed a lot of people in the customer service space. And so that was my focus. I was working 80 hours a week and mostly from home, essentially just stopped moving my body and stopped even making even a unhealthy meal at home, like a frozen pizza. All I did was order. And so the food noise got exceptionally loud in my head. If you don't know what food noise is, I sort of describe it like this, like a kid named Timmy. So imagine that you are a parent and you bring your kid named Timmy to the grocery store, and Timmy sees a candy bar and wants it, and you say, no, Timmy, you can't have it. We're getting something healthy for dinner. And Timmy throws a temper tantrum, and Timmy starts screaming and crying and hitting the ground and all of that. And you say no. At some point, you as a parent have a choice to make. Timmy is screaming and crying, and you can't even hear yourself think because of it. And you have a choice. Do I give in to Timmy just so I can go about my day, even though I know it's the wrong thing to do, even though I know it's a bad idea, I do it anyway, or fight it? And every parent on earth understands that eventually you're going to give in. Timmy is food noise. That's what food noise is like if you don't know. It's that voice in your head that is just constant, telling you to make these bad choices. And you do it. And every time you do it, you say, all right, last time, I'll be better tomorrow, I'll be better Monday, or the first of the month, or the first of the year. And what happens, and what happened to me, is that you have hundreds of great Mondays. I'm going to start Monday. And then you have a pretty good Monday. And then Tuesday, you're doing okay still. You're really impressed with yourself. Wow, I ate really well yesterday and today, and I'm walking or moving my body a little bit more. Then by Wednesday, that food noise is really loud. And you begin to justify and negotiate with yourself. And you say things like, I've been really good. It's just one day. And then you have the thing that you probably shouldn't be having at that moment. And then the next day you feel like it's just another day. And once you have 2 bad days, it's sort of game over and you failed again. And now I'm going to start again Monday. And because I'm starting Monday, I'm just going to do whatever I want the next 3 days or 4 days. And then you get in this cycle where you continually gain over time, and you're in a constant battle in your head. But during COVID, I gained a significant amount of weight. The highest I got was 652 pounds. I think I was probably quite a bit more, but I stopped weighing myself for well over a year. Every day I'd look at the scale on the floor and actively choose not to stand on it because I knew that it was going to be a number that terrified me. And in hindsight, of course, I wish I would have gotten on it. But eventually I did, and I saw that I was 652 at the highest. I had traveled back to where I was from and seen some friends and family who were incredibly concerned about me. I had a lot of friends pull me aside, tell me they were worried about me. They didn't know if I was going to last a whole lot longer. Of course, I agreed. I was worried, but I couldn't put myself in a situation that was better. I had never strongly considered a bariatric surgery, although in hindsight, I wish I would have done that many years ago. And I began to consider doing a GLP-1 medication. So 3.5 years ago, I just started, not with a medication, but I started moving my body a bit more. And I did. I lost about 50 pounds, which is great. I didn't gain, but I knew I was not going to keep it off. I knew I wouldn't keep it off. The food noise was overpowering. I knew it was a matter of time before I failed again. Around that time, I had 3 things happen that were life-changing for me, that really told me I needed to get help, that the path I was on was not a good path for me. And so the first thing is I officiated my sister's wedding. You can see the video here of what that looks like. I officiated my sister's wedding on the beach in Florida. And right after the ceremony, we were taking pictures. This is a public beach. You know, we were there for the wedding, but there were lots of other people around us. I fell on the beach. I stepped back, didn't realize there was a little ledge. I fell. Really embarrassing. I ended up hurting my knee, which I didn't know at the time. But in the moment, I couldn't get up. And I was 650 pounds, unable to get up off the ground because of the sand. It was the most embarrassing moment of my entire life because there was people around. It was a public beach. And so at that moment, I'm thinking someone is going to take out their phone and record me. And I was going to be a meme. I was going to be the beached whale, fat guy who couldn't get up. And so I'm laughing because, you know, I'm trying to make this sort of funny. But in my head, I'm just thinking, please, please, no one record this. Please don't let this be seen. Fortunately, someone was able to help me get up. Then a few weeks later, I was visiting a friend of mine, a group of us were, and he's older, he's in his mid-70s, and we were leaving his place, and he pulled me aside and said, Jamie, I want you to go to my funeral. I don't want to go to yours. And when a man who's 75 tells you at 43 that he's going to your funeral, that was a huge wake-up call for me. And I realized that no one my size was alive in their 50s. They were all dead. All of them. And even at my biggest, I still loved my life. I still wanted to be alive. And the idea that I wasn't in middle age, I was at the end. I was in my final years. It was really a moment that I'll always remember. And then a few weeks after that, one of the worst moments of my life is I'd gotten up to use the bathroom, as we do in the morning, and I could not get up off the toilet. I got stuck on the toilet. And I had this thought at that moment, which is this how I'm going to die? Like, is this how it ends for me? Not at this moment. I didn't have my phone with me. I figured I'd fall on the ground and crawl to a phone or whatever. But it was more about a situation like this where I am trapped. And I was eventually able to get up, but I had these overpowering thoughts at that point of what happens with someone my size after they die? Do you cremate me? Can you cremate me? How will the fire department or the coroner move my body? Do they have to cut me up? Like, these are the dark thoughts you have when you are that size. And being stuck in the toilet opened up this thinking in me of, this is getting really bad. So I got a walker at that point because I needed to be able to stand up and I couldn't really do it anymore. So I got a walker and began to lose a little bit more weight. After about a year, I talked with my doctor and started a GLP-1 medication. You may know them as Ozempic or Mounjaro, Wegovy, Zepbound. I started one of those, and that was 2.5 years ago. And I've now lost about 320 pounds in those 2 years, 2.5 years, thanks to my GLP-1 medication. But what that did for me is it obviously fixed some issues with insulin resistance. It fixed some of the metabolic disorders that were happening in my body. But the biggest thing it did for me is that it quieted the food noise. I did not have the food noise anymore. I could actually be in control of what I was doing. The GLPs never really suppressed my appetite. I still get hungry. I could eat a whole pizza right now if I wanted, but I don't want to. I don't have that desire like I used to, thanks to my GLP-1 medication. I started using a GLP-1 when I was 600 pounds, and I started doing weightlifting, basic stuff from home, and then joining a gym when I was 550 pounds. I could barely walk. I could maybe walk 20 or 30 feet at a time. But once I started working out, I was feeling a lot better. I started working out 4 days a week, which I would never suggest anyone do at this point. Starts much slower than I did. And then over the course of time, I started walking a bit more. At about 475 pounds, I started walking a lot, a few thousand steps a day, and then more and more. And now I'm at the point where I'm walking at least 12,000 steps a day, almost every day. My entire identity has changed in the last 3.5 years. I used to see working out and physical activity, walking, as punishment, as a thing that I had to do, I'm required to do. Now I see those things as things I get to do, that I'm excited to do. I get excited when there's no parking spot and I have to walk extra far. That makes me happy now. I get excited to lift some weights. I get excited when it's difficult for me. Not that I'm happy. I get mad when I fail, but failure is part of the story. My life is better in every single way. And so throughout this process, as I'm sharing my story, here are some of the big lessons that I've learned. And these are the 4 mindset rules that I have for myself. I did not start by saying, hey, here are my mindset rules. It didn't start like that. I looked back over the course of time and realized I'd really changed my life. And how did I do it? So here the rules are. Rule number 1 is that I keep the promises I make to myself. I have realized that we often keep the promises we make to other people, but we break the promises we make to ourselves because it's easy to do that. We're not accountable to anyone else when we break a promise to ourselves. I think about promises like vows. If you love someone, you keep your word to them. You keep your promise, and that's what a vow is. I think that same type of lesson should apply to us. If you love yourself, you should keep your promise that you make to yourself. That's how you prove you love someone, and that's how you prove you love yourself. So I just started making promises to myself, very basic promises I know I could keep, and I did it. And I began to convince myself that I'm someone worthy of love and worthy of keeping promises to. So that was the biggest change I made really early on. The second mindset rule that I made for myself was to count on consistency and discipline over motivation. Now, I view motivation as different than inspiration. I was inspired to lose weight because I didn't want to die, and I knew that the final years I had left were going to be really, really bad because I was essentially close to immobility, just being on my bed all the time. And so that's inspiration to me. I view motivation as, like, inspiration is the car and motivation's like the gas that you need or that you don't need every single day. You don't have to go put gas in your car every day if you have a little bit in there. And so I'm often not motivated. I'm usually not motivated to go for my walk. I'm usually not motivated to go to the gym or make the healthy choice. I'm still motivated to just sit on my couch and watch some TV or hang out and watch YouTube all day. That's what my motivation is. And so instead, I've had to build some habits that I can be consistent with. And so I started with basic habits, like, for example, every time I go to the bathroom, I drink a glass of water. Every time I eat, I go for a 5 or 10 minute walk. I began to build these small habits to myself that over the time I was able to add to or add additional habits to. And that is how that's how I've been consistent and try to build some discipline, even when motivation fails. I am sometimes motivated to do those things, and it is fantastic. When I'm motivated to go for my walk, it's great. But I'm not always motivated to do that. And then number 3 is celebrate every single win. This is one thing I think people fail to do because we get so focused on our things that are failing that we struggle with, and we get so focused on the future that we don't take the time to think about what's really good for us today. And so I keep a book where I write this down, and I really encourage other people to literally physically pen and paper write your wins down. And I remember my first wins were things like I walked from my car to the door without having to stop to catch my breath. That was a really big win. Now that's normal. But at the beginning, it was a big win. Or the time where I could sit in the booth at the restaurant or the bar. That's a big win. At this point, I have well over 1,000 of these wins written down that at the time might have seemed really small. But looking back, they were big. Now my wins are a lot bigger. Things like when I didn't have to use a seatbelt extender in an airplane. That was a big win. Times I'm now a certified personal trainer with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. That's a huge win. That's the biggest win yet. And so I encourage you to write down your wins and celebrate them as you go. I verbalize the wins. I talk to people about that. My friends are probably a little annoyed with me because I will often say things like, I can sit in this chair and not break it, or things like that. And I think it's important to call those wins out loud and certainly to celebrate them by writing them down. And then the fourth mindset rule is often the hardest one to actually follow through on, which is that you should have input goals versus output goals. What is the difference between those two? Here's what an output goal is. An output goal is the output of the work that you're doing or outcome. The scale, the number on the scale, is an outcome goal. You can't pick that number unless you're some sort of robot that can get in there and pick the number on the scale. You control a lot of the things that affect the scale, but you can't control the scale. You can't necessarily control the size of the clothes that you wear. You can't control what other people say to you. So having a goal based on the scale or a clothing size or people celebrating you or telling you good job, you can't actually do those things yourself. So you shouldn't have a goal for them. At least that's how I feel. Instead, I look at input goals or process goals. These are the things you directly control. For example, I directly control how much water I drink, how often I go to the gym, how many steps I get in every day, what time do I go to bed, what's my sleep like, what choices do I make when it comes to my food. Those are goals I directly can control, or those are things I directly can control, so I set goals for them. And I know that if I'm generally hitting my goals and making them harder to reach over time as I'm accomplishing them, then the outcomes, the scale, what people think, all of that will come. I only set goals for things I directly can control. So when I look back at how I've changed my life over the last 3.5 years, that's how I did it. Those 4 mindset rules I have for myself have made a massive, massive difference for me. And now I'm posting on YouTube and other social media. I'm appearing on a lot of podcasts. I've been in the media. I'm a certified personal trainer with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I'm also a certified nutrition coach and a certified wellness coach with NASM as well. And I'm doing all those things because I feel like the luckiest human being on the planet. I'm not proud of this weight loss that I've had. I'm not proud of it. That doesn't mean I'm not happy with it, but here's sort of how I look at it. Imagine you're in a swimming pool and you are starting to drown and you're trying to get above the water and you can't. Eventually you do. Eventually you pull yourself up to the side and you're laying there and you're catching your breath. You almost drowned. You almost died. In that moment, do you feel like you're proud of yourself? Probably not. You probably feel grateful. You probably feel grateful that you didn't die. That's how I feel about my weight loss. I feel grateful that I've come this far. I feel proud of how I'm using my story to hopefully help others, but I'm not proud of the number dropping. I'm grateful. And I approach life with joy now because at this point, every single day is a gift for me that there's a good chance I was not going to have at my previous weight. And even if I were alive right now, having not lost the weight that I've lost and improved the health the way that I have, my life would be pretty miserable. I would be sitting in a chair all the time. I'd be laying in bed all the time. So I guess my final message to you is that if you're someone who is trying to change your life, who wants to feel like things can get better maybe for you, but you're not sure, I want you to know things can get better. Your life can improve. My life is better in every single way that you can possibly imagine since I reclaimed my health. Every single thing is better, and it can be for you too. And if you take anything away from this talk, it's that when you decide to get the help you need medically, when you decide to focus on shifting your mindset to a place of health, to a place of loving yourself by keeping promises to yourself, when you do that, everything can change for you too. Subscribe, give a comment, reach out if I can provide any help at all. My mission in life now is to try to help other people accomplish what I've accomplished and feel the way that I feel, because life can be better for you. Trust me.